All right, welcome to the Lorcana Ginger YouTube channel. This video is going to be a matchup between two of the most relevant decks in Fabled, the current Fabled metagame. On the left, that's me playing with the Jafar playmat. I am using Amethyst Sapphire, also known as Blurple. And on the right, that is the other host of two Bumbling Mates, Duarte. And he is on Amber Steel aggro. So that's my deck list that I'm playing. I played it at the Lorcana 6K Orange County, which was the biggest Lorcana tournament to date in California, and I got top 16 with that list in a 180 person tournament. So that felt great. This is the same deck list that I am using in this video. There are certain cards in this deck list that I use to be able to perform decently into Amber Steel. Some of the cards that I'm looking for against Amber Steel are Into the Unknown, which is the 3-cost inkable song that allows you to take an exerted opposing character and put it into their inkwell face down. It's essentially a Hades effect on a 3-cost song, but the character has to be exerted. And I'm looking for the other standard stuff like my ramp on turn 2. I also really want Rafiki on turn 1. He's a 1-cost that has Challenger 3, so he helps with things like Daisy Duck. The reason you want Into the Unknown so much in this matchup is because it can deal with Tiana. Okay, so turn 1, I inked, and I played Rafiki, which is the optimal start against Amber Steel. Just getting a character down that can challenge into other characters' bigger bodies on turn 1 is really important. So I drew into Tipo here. So I have a hand, I believe it's Into the Unknown. I have an Elsa, a Tipo, a Sail the Azurite Sea. Two other cards I can't totally see, but I ended up deciding to ink the Sail the Azurite Sea and play the Tipo. And the reason I chose to do that is because I want to be able to contest this Daisy Duck if it quests. So if he quests with the Daisy Duck, that means I get a free challenge with Tipo and Rafiki into that Daisy Duck. So essentially I'm stopping him from wanting to quest by playing this Tipo instead of the Sail the Azurite Sea. Because Rafiki has Challenger 3s and Tipo attacks for 1, so that would take out Daisy. So he inks Penny and he plays Mr. Arrow. Mr. Arrow's a 1-2. He has Resist 1, Quest for 2. I draw into a Tipo. At this point, it's pretty obvious that that's what I want to ink. Now, I have a very odd hand here. I end up playing out Dolores Madrigal. She is not a turn 3 play that I would generally want. When you play her, if an opposing character is exerted, you get to draw a card. She's something I want to top deck later in the game. I don't want to play her on turn 3 because, as you just saw, nothing was exerted, so I didn't get to draw a card. But I end up putting her down on the board just because I need to get bodies down against his deck because his Amber Steel aggro goes very quick. So I play Dolores Madrigal. He plays Tiana, and Tiana is the reason that I'm happy to have Into the Unknown in my hand. Now, I kind of pounded the table joking around because I drew into an uninkable. I drew into Hades. This turn ends up being really weird for me. And essentially what I wanted to do was I wanted to ink whatever I drew. I wanted to play Elsa for 5. Elsa allows me to exert a character, so I would exert Tiana. And then I wanted to sing with Dolores Madrigal Into the Unknown to then put Tiana into his inkwell, and that would deal with Tiana. Tiana is currently a must-answer card in this meta. I'm reading it. I already know what it does. I don't know why I'm reading it again. But I drew into an uninkable Hades, so I'm trying to decide, do I ink Elsa and just pass? Do I ink Into the Unknown and then play an Elsa and then challenge into Mr. Arrow? But the problem with that is that then Tiana is getting exerted next turn, and she's going to be difficult to deal with depending on what else I draw into. And I don't have anything to challenge into her directly without having to pay the cost. So I actually just skipped ink and I passed. And Duarte at this point was kind of confused why I had done that. But we'll end up seeing if this play, or I should say lack of play, ends up benefiting me. So he sings Be Our Guest. Be Our Guest allows you to look at the top 4 cards of your deck. And if you have a character, you may choose a character, reveal it, and put it into your hand. It's a good way for Amber Steel in this meta to draw an extra card or dig a little bit deeper. So he gets the Pluto. Pluto's a great turn 4 play for Amber Steel because it allows you to not only have a Tiana on the board, which is really hard to deal with, but also allows you to get a bodyguard. So now you're dealing with not only a 5/5 bodyguard in Pluto, but also a Tiana. So he quests with Daisy. Off the Daisy trigger, I get a Rafiki, which is actually a really nice draw. The Rafiki ends up being pretty important for me later. But he sings Strength of the Raging Fire, and he's able to take out Dolores Madrigal. So now my board is looking pretty weak. I drew into a second Into the Unknown, which I actually do not mind because this gives me an answer for Pluto and it gives me an answer for Tiana. The only issue is that it's kind of a slow turn for me because I'm still at 4 ink because I didn't ink last turn. And so if I ink up to 5, I don't have much to do. And the other question is what I want to ink here. Because I essentially want to save 1 Into the Unknown for Tiana and 1 Into the Unknown for Pluto. So I make a really kind of difficult inking decision here. And I end up inking the Elsa, which is a really good card in this matchup because she has Rush against aggro decks is really important because it allows you to challenge after they play something down. And I end up just playing a Rafiki for 1 and then hard casting the Into the Unknown onto the Tiana. I've definitely felt like I had to deal with Tiana that turn or the things were going to get out of control. So that's why I compromised and I played Rafiki just to get a body down and then hard casted Into the Unknown. I inked Elsa because I have Hades in my hand and I really want to get to that Hades. I don't want to skip another turn of ink. Anyways, he plays 2 John Silvers, which makes it really difficult for me because when John Silver comes into play, you select 2 characters. When John Silver comes into play, you select a character, and that character cannot challenge the following turn. So he played 2 John Silvers and selected both my Rafikis, so neither one of my Rafikis can challenge. The only thing I have on board right now that can challenge is the Tipo. And as you know, Tipo is a weak character in terms of its stat line. It's a 1/2. So I ink Baymax. And off the Daisy trigger, I ended up drawing something that I think was inkable that I was able to keep. So I hard cast again, have to hard cast Into the Unknown to deal with the Pluto. And then here I'm deciding what to do with Tipo. And I ended up deciding to put 1 damage into Daisy Duck. And the reason I do that is because 1, there's no Rapunzels anymore to feed off that damage. And 2, I want to be able to the following turn challenge with Rafiki with his Challenger 3 and cleanly take out the Daisy Duck, just because there's a slight chance that Tipo could be removed. Now, he ends up getting another Pluto bodyguard down, and he quests here to get up to 13. So it's 13-0. All I have is 3 1-drops on the board. Daisy trigger, I thought gave me an Into the Unknown. I got kind of excited. Here I'm pounding my hand, pounding the table, joking around. I thought I was keeping the Into the Unknown, and then I remembered Daisy. I had a little brain fart there. I remember Daisy only gives you characters. But I draw into an Inkable, which is crucial because if you look at my hand, there is a Hades and I think a second Hades. So I draw into the Inkable. The Hades allows me to take out the Pluto, and now I can start challenging with Rafikis. So I challenge with this Rafiki. Since I had the 1 damage from Tipo the turn before, I could take it out with 1 Rafiki. That allows me to, with the second Rafiki, take out Mr. Arrow. And now the board state has surprisingly flipped. So me being patient with the Rafikis and using the Into the Unknowns is what saved me in this game. The more games, if you're playing Blurple against Amber Steel, the more games you play, the more you will start to realize that Into the Unknown is your best friend in this matchup. And if you have a 1 cost that's able to challenge into characters that are stronger than it, meaning Rafiki or Royal Guard. So he ends up double challenges 1 John Silver into 1 Rafiki, another John Silver into another Rafiki, which makes sense because Rafiki attacks back for 0. He only has Challenger 3. So the board state for him now is okay. And for me, having this other Hades in my hand is actually really, really nice. So I take out his John Silver. I get 3 damage, and instead of Hades, I end up playing Baymax, because Baymax allows me to heal 2 damage and then gain 2 lore for every time I heal 2 damage. And the nice thing about that is that that doesn't allow his John Silver to challenge and trade with Hades next turn. So he's kind of in this weird top deck mode. I think he has a Strength of the Raging Fire in his hand that he's not playing because he wouldn't be getting much value for it. And he, at this point, we were joking around and he kept saying how much he needed a dock to get himself back into this game. And I'm starting to take over the game here, and a Genie's not a bad draw. I do have a Hades, and I'm, debating if I should play the Hades and take out one of his characters, but I feel like even though I'm only at 4 lore and he's at 13, that just getting characters on the board and not having to use Hades effect on John Silver or Captain Hook is totally acceptable. It felt like he wasn't going to make any huge lore jumps, and just in case he top decks something like another Tiana or another Pluto or a Rhino, something big like that, I wanted to be able to play the Hades on that, or I want to save the Hades and be able to play it on something if I absolutely have to. If you can avoid using your Hades and you can control the board enough with Belle, Accomplished Mystic, or Elsa, that's what I would recommend doing, because Hades allows you to get rid of anything you want to. It doesn't have to be exerted. It doesn't have to be challenged. It just lets you get rid of anything. So if you can, save the Hades for moments where you need it. There was multiple times in this matchup where I did need the Hades. And so he plays Pluto. He's debating whether he wants to play it in Bodyguard or if he wants to leave it unexerted. The reason you'd leave it unexerted is just to hopefully guarantee that you'll get some lore gain and I can't challenge into it the next turn. He doesn't know I have a Hades in my hand. He ends up challenging, playing Strength for 2 damage on Baymax and then challenging with John Silver into it. The Baymax, it makes sense because Baymax effect not only is on the play, but it's also every time Baymax quest, it can remove up to 2 damage from one of your own characters and gain 2 lore for that. So he wanted to get rid of that character. So Teeple ends up trading with John Silver, which is a really good trade. I challenge Genie into Captain Hook, take back 1. I quest for 2 with Hades, and it's 9-14. I've taken control over this game, and he finally sees the dock. If he had seen the dock a couple turns earlier, this game could have gone differently, but he ended up seeing it what I would consider too late. It does become a decently close game, but he really needed more, or he needed like double daisies off of that dock to get him back in the game. And at this point, it's all about just making sure that you don't make any miscalculations and make sure you control the board and not get carried away with the fact that, oh, I have a bunch of lore on board. You really want to pay attention and make sure that how much do I need to control the board if I got another card versus just questing and questing. Now, nothing's exerted, so for me to control his board, I would have to play another, an Elsa to exert something, or a Hades. I'm calculating here. I'm not sure what the last card in my hand was. I'll see in a second. I'm wondering if it was... Oh, it was Belle, I think. Yeah, I was just calculating. Oh, you know what it was? I was calculating to see if I wanted to use Dumbo's effect on Genie and get 1 lore and draw a card, or if I wanted to get the 2 lore for Genie. Yeah, so I ended up winning game 1. And here we go, game 2. My opening hand, we have a Diablo, double Tipo, Elsa, not Genie, Dumbo, and a couple other cards I sent back. It was almost a good hand. If that Dumbo was a Genie, I would have kept a good amount of that hand. I just don't like playing Dumbo on turn 3 because Dumbo's a card I want to top deck and then I want to use the ability. Dumbo also only has 3 willpower. It's a lot weaker against Strength of the Raging Fire. So I kept the ramp. It's kind of tough sometimes with Blurple where you'll notice if you play Blurple, I think you end up oftentimes, or at least I end up oftentimes, sending back 6 cards. It happens frequently. Every once in a while, you'll get a great opening hand. So at this point, I was happy about the Scrooge. The Scrooge is a strong card. It's a 4-cost uninkable, and it has 5 attack and 5 willpower. So I can play that on turn 3 with my because I can ramp. And then it can contest a lot of his board. Now, what I need to be careful for is him getting 5 characters on the board and playing Strength of the Raging Fire and getting rid of that Scrooge. But Scrooge is still a great turn 3 play against Amber Steel. Another reason it's a good turn 3 play is because if he exerts a Tiana, if you have Hypnotic Strength, you can give +2 to that Scrooge, and you can challenge the Tiana, and that would be 7 attack, and it would actually be enough to take out the Tiana and get around her effect. So he played Rhino on turn 1. Now, in the moment, I was thinking, good, he only has a turn 1 Rhino with no shift. I'd rather that than a Daisy, but I end up in this game seeing how much Daisy can keep my hand full, and if I do run out of draw, it can be pretty detrimental. So sometimes seeing a turn 1 Daisy, if you're playing it against an Amber Steel, you want to weigh your options and consider when you take out the Daisy and when you take out something else, because sometimes it's worth it to let Daisy survive for another turn if it's going to draw you into another card. The tricky thing becomes if it draws you into the unknown, which you might need to deal with the Tiana, and then it puts it at the bottom of the deck. But that's just kind of a chance you have to take. So he's going wide here. He plays Lady, which allows you to play a 2-cost character or less for free, and he plays out Mr. Arrow. He's got a super wide board. I feel okay because of the Scrooge. The issue, though, with Lady playing something on turn 3 and an additional character for free is now next turn, if he does play another character and he has Strength of the Raging Fire, he can sing Strength of the Raging Fire with Lady, and then he'll now have 5 characters to take out Scrooge because of Strength of the Raging Fire's effect. Whereas if he had just played Tiana or another 3-drop that didn't get down a Mr. Arrow or another 2-cost, he would have only been able to sing next turn for 4 damage onto Scrooge from the Strength of the Raging Fire, and Scrooge would have survived that. But now I know he's going to play a 5th character, and if he does have the Strength, he's probably taking out the Scrooge. I had another really weird starting hand here, and I only put out a Rafiki. So this was not an ideal opening. Ideally, I would have had an Elsa that turn, and I would have played Elsa, and then I would have exerted Lady, and then I would have challenged Lady with Elsa or Scrooge, because it would have stopped exactly what you just saw, which is Lady singing Strength of the Raging Fire. And I would have gone for her specifically because she is a 3-cost character, so she can sing Strength of the Raging Fire. That's why I would have challenged her over the small Rhino or any of the other characters. But I didn't have that, and he was able to get down Rhino and put 5 characters on the board, which buffed up Strength of the Raging Fire to 5, and he took out my Scrooge. So having Elsa turn 5 against Amber Steel seems really important oftentimes. So I end up challenging with Rafiki, and then I moved the 1 damage off Rafiki into Lady, and then I challenged Tipo and trade with Lady. I felt okay at this point. I felt like that turn was actually not too bad. Being able to take out 2 characters was a little better than I expected. I saw Belle, and I thought, oh, there's only 1 damage to move with Belle, but it ended up working out because Tipo could challenge. He puts a Pluto down again, and then just freely takes out my Rafiki. Quest here for 3, and now he's up at 9. And I'm left with a Belle, and he has a really wide board. I draw into a Hades, and I have a Monstro. That's the other card. So I was kind of trying to hold on to the Monstro because it can rush in and take out Rhino easily. But I have to ink the Monstro here to get to 7 ink because I need to do something this turn. So I unfortunately have to ink the Monstro and then challenge and take out the Pluto. And, I'm going to challenge with Belle into something here. I'm debating whether to take out Rhino or take out the 2-quester. At this point, taking out a small Rhino doesn't matter as much if he shifts it. So I take out the character that's questing for 2. But I'm in top deck mode for a long time in this game. He only takes back 2 damage there. And being in the top deck mode in this game was difficult. He was also able to heal 2 damage with Penny off of that Rhino and give it resist. One that was crucial because he she took 2 damage off Rhino, so now his resist is back. So I can't take it out with Hades. And now you'll see this next turn, I top deck a Hypnotic Strength, but even with the Hypnotic Strength giving 2 extra attack to Hades, because Penny also gave Rhino that resist 1, I don't have enough attack to take it out. So the Rhino was free there. I couldn't do anything. He also had another dock that turn, so that was a really solid turn. His hand has 3 cards in it. He sings Be Our Guest, and he goes looking at the top 4 cards of his deck, and he ends up taking the Nala here. We talked about this after the game. I said there's an argument to take the John Silver, and then you can play that down and stop my Iago from challenging, which would be relatively strong because you're essentially guaranteeing the only thing I have to challenge that next turn would be Hades. Or if I drew into something else that had Rush or some kind of removal. So I think I would have gone John Silver just to protect my board, but he went the route that was a little bit more of an aggro route, which I also think was just as good as of a play, and he did take Nala. So Nala is a 2-cost uninkable, and she quests for 3 when she does not have damage. So he plays down the Pluto, and he just keeps protecting all of his stuff. The Pluto makes it super difficult to come back from. And at this point, I'm looking to top deck probably another Hades or a Monstro would have been decent. The top deck here was actually pretty good. It was a Bell Accomplished Mystic, so I challenge into Pluto. It lowers his attack to 1. That gives me 5 damage to move around on Iago. Just doing a little math here. And I paid 5. And I end up playing down Bell. And I move 3 damage from Iago. And it gets around the resist of Rhino because moving damage gets around resist. And that allows me to challenge Hades into Pluto and only take back 1. And even though I'm starting to get control of the board a bit, he's at 14 low already. He's going to quest to 18, and then he plays Lady and Nala, and that's probably why that Nala was a good choice to choose off of that last turn. If he had Daisy as a turn 1 play, this game potentially would have been different because I was looking for one more card to ink that turn a few turns ago where I ended up having to ink Monstro. So that potentially, if I had one more ink, would have allowed me to ink that card, play Hades, and then play Monstro the following turn, and that Monstro could have been a big difference maker. So yeah, Daisy's powerful. In this meta specifically where draw power is low, sometimes playing against a Daisy can feel okay. I just plopped down Dumbo, and that was it. Thanks for watching.